if you're trying to hit the very high, the high flying scientists, you're not going to be able to convince those particular individuals of the Srimad Bhagavatam's logic, because they are already shrouded in Maya, and they're already shrouded in this web of lies, and they believe them so intrinsically. It's very hard to dispel that from their mind. But it's the average person on the street who has been told this and doesn't know that it's not fact. They're the ones that would benefit most by us challenging these scientists, because we're giving them a positive alternative. It's like how we give a positive alternative to the rat race, or how we give it we're telling people your life isn't just about waking up, going to work, then going to the pub at the weekend. You are a spirit soul, and therefore the object of your life should be the science of self-realization. So similarly, we are telling them also, don't believe everything that you hear. The scientists are giving you theories and half-truths. So here's a conclusive truth, and when you look at it, it's actually going to make perfect sense to you. There was a whole presentation that was given to Srila Prabhupada. The Bhaktivedanta Institute was set up, and there was a whole presentation that was given to Srila Prabhupada. And we are very, very lucky that we have literature from the likes of great scientists who are also great devotees, the likes of Sadhguru Prabhu and Swarup Damodar Maharaj. We are very, very lucky to be in a time when we had these great devotees who were able to take very, very complex scientific theory, disprove it, and also then go on to show how the Vedic philosophy is actually superior. It was during this presentation, as I was saying, Swarup Damodar was present and Sadhguru Prabhu was present, and they gave a presentation to Prabhupada on how it was infinitely impossible for evolution to occur. That statistically speaking, the percentage chance of this actually occurring is non-existent. At the end of it, Prabhupada said, that isn't what mathematics is. That's what real mathematics is. Taking basically the skills that the devotee might have developed. In this case, Sadhguru was a great mathematician and scientist, and he was able to completely tear apart the theory that life could ever have come from matter. Prabhupada said that is not ordinary rascal mathematics, but he said to Sadhguru that you were a real mathematician. He actually said that he was a Mahatma, and to be called a Mahatma by Srila Prabhupada, I don't think there is any bigger compliment that you could ever be given in any lifetime. But he was then able to go on to obviously decode the 5th canto and give us our Vedic cosmology, but also that work then went on to, is now the basis of the TLVP and the Vedic Planetarium and the structure for the Centre Chandelier for the Vedic Planetarium. So that's what real scientists is. That's what a real scientist is. They're able to open-mindedly look at the information and say conclusively that the Vedic presentation of science is actually not only superior, but it's the only logical one that's there. And actually, we are very, very blessed to live in a time when we can, at any given opportunity, if we're ever asked a very, very scientific question, we can then go and look through, and actually those Prabhus have already done that work, because it's obviously going to be a natural thing that not every devotee is expert in every particular area. I speak from experience. My knowledge of Sanskrit is absolutely terrible. My tongue can't pronounce half of the Sanskrit words, and it doesn't matter how many times I look at a verse, I will still mess it up when trying to speak it, because linguistics is not a strong point of mine, nor probably will it ever be. But we have so many devotees who are expert at Sanskrit that if someone comes to you and says, I need to know what this particular Sanskrit word is, then we have the devotees there that Krishna has sent us representatives, and Krishna has sent us Srila Prabhupada, where we can go and we can then research that and find out and present that answer back. It's similar with science, that you're not going to know the intricate details of, say, for instance, redshift or genetic mutations of an eye or something like that. But actually these devotees who have come before us have been given that information by Srila Prabhupada and have been able, through their own, the Paramatma in their heart has been able to give them that information so that we can then pass that information on. A really nice story that most of you probably have heard is whenever Tribhuvnath Prabhu, he's speaking about Srila Prabhupada, and he's discussing about how they used to go back to the room after Prabhupada gave class, and they used to talk over the class again, and then one devotee turned to Prabhupada and said, why do you go back over the class? I'm paraphrasing, but why do you go back over the class when you've given it? And Prabhupada said, because I did not speak it. And that's very much the case in Srimad Bhagavatam, and even I think sometimes in the works of these great devotees, is that information is all coming from Krishna. So Krishna is providing us with the guides for that specific field. So in the case of science, Prabhupada, he personally set up the Bhaktivedanta Institute with devotees who were charged then to challenge the scientists. So that information is there, so that if we're preaching and we're trying to reach out to people who are a bit confused because they've been taught one thing, and we're trying to present another bit of information to them, we have that backup there. The information is already there for us to access. So I just thought I'd add in that nice little story about Srila Prabhupada, because Srila Prabhupada was, he said, I did not speak it. So Krishna provided that. And it's the same with this information that has come from these devotees, and especially the Bhaktivedanta Institute. This is information that is, they have the, I won't say the intelligence, but they have the insight to be able to help us understand the Srimad Bhagavatam a little bit better too. So actually, the funny thing is, a lot of those devotees, the likes of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, it turns back to what I was saying about how there is a certain amount of dogma that is attached to the scientific community, because what happens is actually whenever they went and they challenged the scientific community, there's many stories about where they were nearly thrown out, because it was the idea that you would present something different from what they class as the norm meant that they were considered to be quacks. And there is so much information, and that science can't explain. So if you go into the scientific community and you're talking about UFOs, or you're talking about beings from another world, or you're talking about the paranormal, there's so much evidence for all of those things, but if you mention them to one of the hardcore scientists, they completely shut it down. And that's not science. That's not what science is. If they were actually scientists, they would want to explore all the different avenues, but they don't. They cut it down. So basically, what I was trying to get through, and I might have rambled on a little bit, is the evidence that the Srimad Bhagavatam is genuine, and that Prabhupada is giving us everything that we need for preaching and everything that we need to get ourselves home back to Godhead is there. But if we start looking and delving into half-truths of modern science, then actually it's very, very detrimental for our spiritual life. But also Maya is very, very strong, and Maya is working through that agency to try and entrap living entities. If you look even at, as I was saying, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and even some of the very, very basic things that are in the Srimad Bhagavatam and are mentioned in passing, but are highly complex. So the likes of in the Srimad Bhagavatam they have I think the number pi, they have it to 21 digits, which predates massively any modern mathematics. They also have, if you go to the 5th canto, I remember when I was reading through the 5th canto the first time, I was quite astounded by this. They have time according to the atom. Now, funnily enough, international atomic time wasn't developed until centuries afterwards. I think international atomic time was in the 1800s. No, it was later than the 1800s that was developed. We have record of that in Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, again, as I was saying, the earliest copies of the European Srimad Bhagavatam was in 1769. So you have topics like the atomic time that are predating the likes of the earliest copies of the European versions of Srimad Bhagavatam, which was centuries before it was even invented by so-called modern science. You know, the level of scientific details in Srimad Bhagavatam is astounding. There's places where they talk about the atomic, theory of elements, but that wasn't, I shouldn't say invented, but that wasn't discovered by Dmitry Mendeleev. That wasn't discovered until 1869. So throughout the entire Srimad Bhagavatam is a whole other class and probably seminar in itself of the various different places where basically Srimad Bhagavatam science is so much, it couldn't logically, even through material terms, have been discovered whenever the Srimad Bhagavatam, even the first copies were wrote down on paper, basically. There's so much evidence of the different places where the Srimad Bhagavatam had scientific information like hundreds of years prior to whenever it was quote-unquote discovered by a scientist, that it's kind of like the what came first, the chicken or the egg. In this case, if you have information that's predating modern science, that's accurate information predating it by centuries and centuries, then there has to be, logically speaking, there is a lot of truth in that. And there's, infinite places where calculations are given, planetary calculations where you can pinpoint the path of the Petries, of the ancestors, and it completely, perfectly coincides with the line of the Milky Way and things like that. There's so much information there that goes to show, and that's just material calculations and things like that, where if you're looking at even the philosophical side of it, there's studies that were done where basically there was a study that was done by the University of Florida where they had, I think it was 25, they had a batch of females basically that were told to chant Hare Krishna, and they recorded the psychological effects on that group that were chanting Hare Krishna. And there's a whole PhD thesis that was done in the Florida State University showing the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna, which then is information and like the physical and mental benefits of it, which again it's over 5,000 years old that we were like, shoot, Lord Chaitanya came to bring Sankirtan to the masses, but the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is going back thousands, it's eternal, and we have then a history of that, and they're only now testing and seeing the benefits of it in Florida State University. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up a little bit there, because again, as I said, I possibly have rambled a little bit. So Prabhupada, what he's wanting is he wants us to, Prabhupada is very clear that he wants us to try and then do our best then to take on these massive theories that are underpinning the scientific community, but are also causing a lot of allusion to a lot of living entities, I'm going to just read a little excerpt between Sadhguru Prabhu and Prabhupada. It was a conversation that was on a morning walk, and it kind of wraps things up quite nicely. So, Sadhguru says, "This is all coming from Krishna though, isn't it?" And Prabhupada says, "Yes, because if you want to be fooled, Krishna makes you a better fool." And Sadhguru Prabhu says, "He's also the greatest cheat." Prabhupada, "You want to become a rogue? He'll give you all facilities to become a rogue. He is so kind. So whatever you want to be, Krishna will help you be. So let's desire to be Krishna consciousness and be great preachers then of Srila Prabhupada's message. And Krishna then will give us the facility to do so." And it's the same for these modern scientists, that they are desiring to be the greatest of atheists. So Krishna will give them that facility. But what we're desiring to be is preachers of Prabhupada's message. So equally, Krishna will give us that facility. So Hare Krishna, I'm sorry if I rambled a little bit. Thank you for listening to the class. I did tend to stray a little bit actually from even my own notes, but that's because it's such an important topic area, where we're coming now into a section of the Bhagavatam where we're very much going to be talking about facts and figures and timelines and things like that. And it's very important that we don't let that sway us from the conditioning that we've been hit with for the majority of our lives, where we've been told falsities as facts, especially before we became devotees. So it's very, very important that we don't let that bewilder us, because we have a higher truth, we have a higher knowledge, we have a more logical truth, and Krishna and Prabhupada, they have given us everything that we need, not only to save ourselves, but also save others in the street, which is a very, very important part of it. We're looking now not just to, Prabhupada said, who his life can preach, so we're not just looking to preach to ourselves, but we're also looking to preach to others. And we are currently in a situation where we have a society that is molding little robots of the conditioned soul to believe half-truths, and to believe fake theories, and to believe nonsense. And it's our job then as preachers to not only present a viable truth that makes logical sense, but also that is transcendental. So it's our jobs then to give them a positive alternative to the nonsense that they've been told for so many years. So thank you, Hare Krishna. I'd like to say a massive thank you actually to Surumi as well, who is up probably ahead of everyone else and has been there on site to help us try to get these things streamed. We are unfortunately in a situation where we're living in an internet black hole, where our internet is coming in via satellite, and it just means that the whole stream is just, it's not really possible. So thank you, Surumi, for helping us deliver classes to you in a seamless manner, as opposed to having stops and starts the whole way through it and getting cut off. So thank you for that, and I hope that you all have a Christian conscious day, and I hope that you're making the most of this lockdown that we've been presented with, and spending time to develop your own Christian consciousness. I know I have, and I've very much enjoyed being able to get to class every morning. So yeah, thank you very much, and Jai Shri Prabhupada, Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Hare Krishna.